it's on record.
Hi, my name is Carrie. I'm a student with UW Superior, and this presentation is here to educate you on effective conflict resolution strategies in the workplace. We're going to be taking a stand. I have about 14 years of experience in the military and civilian sector working in customer service, and I feel that gives me the confidence to be able to teach you about this topic. Ronald Reagan was one of our former presidents, and he once stated that peace is not absence of conflict, it's the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means. Therefore, the ultimate goal is to prevent conflict from leading to undesirable outcomes. We have three main points that we're going to talk about today, and they are the interest-based relational approach, or IBR approach. We're going to discuss the 6 steps and how the approach is used, and then talk about why conflict should be resolved as soon as possible. How do we define conflict? Oxford's English Dictionary states that conflict is a serious incompatibility between 2 or more opinions, principles, or interests. And of course, in any work environment, there are expectations and there are codes of conduct to follow. Acceptable behaviors in the workplace include a positive attitude, being punctual or being on time, setting an example for others, and following the expectations and policies that are required of you. Any unacceptable behaviors include bullying or harassment of other employees, insubordination, showing up late or not at all, and disrespecting managers or customers. According to a study that was conducted in 2008 by the Consulting Psychologist Press, or CPP, Inc., they found that employees in America spend about 2.8 hours per week in some type of conflict. In contrast to that, the Netherlands only spend about 1/3 less time dealing with conflict. The Washington Business Journal also published an article in May 2005, and that revealed that the typical manager spends about 25 to 40%, or 1 to 2 days per week managing conflict in their workplace. Since conflict occurs quite often, we need to get a closer look at the interest-based relational approach and where it came from and how it's used. Roger Fisher and William Ury published a book in 1981 called Getting to Yes, and they focused on 2 major things: building mutual respect and understanding, and encouraging you to resolve conflicts in a united and cooperative way. There are 6 steps, and here they go. Step 1 is establishing a good relationship. It's very important to resolve conflicts and have respect for each other. That way, that makes the process easier. Step 2, separate yourself from the problem. Conflict is rarely one-sided, so the best approach is to collaborate and address the problem rather than the personalities that are involved. Step 3 is active listening. You want to make sure you're using eye contact, you're listening to the other person give their side of the story, and you're keeping their personal interests, needs, and concerns a top priority. Step 4, listen first and then you talk. By listening to each person's point of view, it allows those behaviors and those actions that took place to be thought about and properly addressed. Step 5, are the facts relevant to the situation? If an agreement isn't reachable, then you need to understand the person's perception. And finally, we're going to talk about options. The conflict should be resolved at this stage, and asking each team member how they can brainstorm so that if these things happen again, we know how to deal with them is really, really important. MindTools is a reliable online source I found while I was researching this topic, and they found that any of the guidance that you would need to handle conflict can actually be found on their website. They provide training for top global organizations, and they're very, very useful. Consequences of unresolved conflict. That includes the morale of the workplace. It suffers. Employees potentially leave the job. The reputation of the workplace can be jeopardized, and productivity declines. So keeping in mind, there are guidelines and precautions to use in the IBR approach. It's not perfect, and every situation has its own unique circumstances. So thus far, we've identified conflict and learned a new way to resolve conflict. Now we'll address the consequences and what happens if conflict goes unresolved. Some alternative options are litigation, the cost of hiring a lawyer or attorney. Any violence, it could be verbal or physical abuse, and that could cause a hefty hospital bill. And then grievances, which take a very long time to process because it has to go through a chain of command. So what can employers do to make sure that conflict is resolved and so that all the employees are happy? They can hold training and classes. They can hold staff meetings to remind all employees about the expectations and policies, and they can spend one-on-one time with each employee so that they can build that trust. Hopefully you learned today that conflict is unavoidable, but it's also manageable. And as I mentioned, this approach is easy to use, and it's in many available forms, so it can make the workplace productive and happy. I challenge you to be courageous enough to use the IBR approach the next time you are confronted by conflict. Thank you for allowing me to present this to you, and have a great day.